In health, parts of the alimentary tract are always active. We see directly the action of the esophagus in swallowing. Here we see the act of swallowing in the exposed esophagus of a goose. A ring of contraction preceded by relaxation forces the food downward. An apparatus of this kind is often used to study motility in the alimentary tract. This rubber balloon is placed inside the organ to be studied. When the organ contracts, it forces the air out of the inflated balloon and raises the water level in this manometer. By these means, the stylus records the contractions on a moving paper. The balloon has now been placed in the stomach of this man shortly after a light meal. The large crests are caused by slow and gentle stomach contractions. The short and rapid movements are caused by pressure changes from breathing. In this anesthetized animal, we actually see these same stomach movements, which are characteristic of early digestive action. They are peristaltic waves that progress downward over the lower half of the stomach. The upper half of the stomach, here concealed by the liver, is quiet and serves mainly as a reservoir for the food. The movements are orderly and regular. Although the stomach is an automatic organ, it is regulated by the central nervous system. Stimulation of the vagi nerves with an induction current causes a series of severe contractions of the stomach. An abnormal state of the central nervous system, or too little sugar in the blood, or the use of some drugs, will also result in strong contractions, a condition known as hypermobility. Now, while the stomach is showing normal action, I stimulate the sympathetic nerves of the stomach. The contractions gradually die out. Such a dual control by nerves, acceleration and inhibition, also governs the intestines. Inhibition of movements may also occur if adrenaline is greatly increased in the bloodstream, or when there is a strong emotional stress, as during anxiety, anger, and fear. We can demonstrate this action of adrenaline by this piece of living and active intestinal muscle suspended in a normal salt solution. As I add adrenaline to the salt solution, the contractions stop and the muscle relaxes, as indicated by the stylus. In this entire view of stomach and intestines, we see severe contractions of the lower end of the stomach that move toward the esophagus instead of toward the intestines. This action does not occur in the normal stomach, but may occur in vomiting. Vomiting is a very complicated process involving intricate coordination of many nerve impulses and muscles. Several hours after the last meal, we again record the contractions in the stomach of this man by means of the balloon. The strong contraction now taking place in the empty stomach causes pangs of hunger. The same thing can be shown on the empty stomach of an anesthetized frog. A contraction wave is starting at the upper end of the stomach. These contractions give rise to hunger pangs. As digestion in the stomach proceeds, the peristaltic waves of the stomach become stronger. When the contents of the stomach gradually become more fluid, some of the content is forced into the duodenum. The junction of the stomach and the intestines does not open as each gastric contraction wave approaches. The control of this junction seems to be governed by the consistency of the food, by the acid concentration in the duodenum, as well as by the vagi and sympathetic nerves. An alkaline state in the duodenum favors relaxation at the junction, thus permitting food again to enter from the stomach. Local contractions of the intestinal wall occur rhythmically at places in the intestines where masses of food have accumulated, as in the duodenum here at the left. They divide the food mass, hence the common name segmentation. These movements thoroughly mix the food with new digestive juices and aid absorption by bringing the food mass into better contact with the absorbing walls. When the food has been churned about for a while by these segmentation movements, it is moved forward by peristaltic movements. The wall of the intestines at and below the food mass is relaxed, while the part of the wall behind the bolus is constricted. This relaxation, followed by a constriction, passes forward along the intestine, causing the food mass to move towards the large intestine. Usually, such peristaltic waves progress for a few inches and then cease, and segmentation movements are resumed. In an adult man, the small intestines are about 22 feet long, and it takes a meal from 3 to 6 hours to pass through them. All of the intestines, as well as the stomach, now show activity. In the duodenum at the upper left may be seen strong peristaltic waves. Most of the absorption of digested food takes place in the lower portion of the small intestines. If the inside lining of the small intestines is observed through a microscope, it is seen to be covered by a mass of finger-like projections called villi. The actual size of this view is 1/16 of an inch square. We are looking down on the tips or free ends of the villi. The villi are in constant motion and reveal two distinct types of actions. There is, first, a swaying movement from side to side. But we are more interested in observing the second type of motion, which appears like pumping movements. Note that the villi are suddenly retracted and then relax more slowly. The contractions are definitely muscular movements. It is obvious that this mechanical movement of the villi may assist in absorption of food products, both by the bloodstream and by the lymphatic system. After passing through the length of the small intestines, the content containing mostly indigestible material or roughage and water enters the large intestines, or the colon. Although the colon does not absorb much digested food, still it does absorb and conserve much of the water. The colon and the small intestines, just like the stomach, are essentially automatic organs, but they have also the same dual control from the central nervous system, the sacral and hypogastric nerves acting as accelerators, and the sympathetic nerves acting as inhibitors. The presence of solid matter or roughage in the intestines also has a tendency to stimulate motility. Irritating drugs cause violent movements. The colon also commonly reveals another type of motion, namely antiperistalsis. These movements probably aid in the absorption of water by delaying the time when the material reaches the rectum. Parts of the normal colon ordinarily show long periods of quiescence. 20 to 30 hours are normally required for the contents to pass through the colon. During this time, more and more of the water is absorbed, and the contents therefore become firmer and firmer. Strong longitudinal as well as transverse contractions force the contents out of the colon, as shown in this animal. Normally, strong voluntary contractions of the abdominal muscle aid this action of the colon musculature. The healthy alimentary tract is a remarkable machine, performing automatically and well on a variety of good foods in moderation, if we don't worry.